So we'll do one more segment here with Q&A. Thanks, everybody, for sending in 43 trillion questions. I apologize for the people whose questions I didn't answer. Next time we do it, I'll try to answer more if I can. Somebody asks, who is your primary inspiration? That's a great question. I don't think I could give just one person because that wouldn't do it justice. But Bill Maher is one. I'm not a comedian, but I always was a fan of his work, even back during the politically incorrect days. I was too young at the time to appreciate it, but you could see on YouTube or elsewhere, there's clips of his old show. I really like that. I love Real Time. Again, I'm not a comedian, but I feel like certain aspects of his thinking have influenced me, and I always thought he was a smart guy. So he was a big influence. Richard Dawkins was a gigantic influence. Again, because that book, The God Delusion, was probably the first thing that sparked my interest in just reading all different stuff and actually using reason. And it kind of blew my mind. I read it when I was young, but I was like, oh my God, this guy really cares about this issue, and he broke everything down in such a great way. So Richard Dawkins is a huge influence on me. Tom Hartman is actually a big influence on me. He is like the godfather almost of liberal talk radio in many ways. And I always thought he was really smart and really ahead of his time back during the Air America days, and I would listen to him and think, I kind of want to do what he's doing right now. And then, of course, Noam Chomsky. Now, the funny thing is I actually disagree with Noam Chomsky on a lot of stuff when it comes to economic issues. I think he's pretty significantly to the left of me, and he's much more of a revolutionary than I am. But the thing about Chomsky is that he made me realize that if I come to a conclusion when I'm thinking or using logic, if I come to a conclusion that's wildly out of the mainstream, who cares about the mainstream? It doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean anything about if they're right or wrong. And he is able to explain things when it comes to the issue of foreign policy specifically. He explains things in a way where he really forces you to be objective, where he tells you, no, stop with all this bullshit, oh, rah, America, we're always right, we're always great, and, we mean well, so even when something bad or wrong happens that we do, it's okay because we meant well. He really is the first person in my life reading his works where I realized he just flipped that on its head. He's like, no, here's the standard for foreign policy. Who's fucking killing people indiscriminately, and who has the highest body count, and who's fucking with shit the most and causing the biggest problem. And then he just breaks it down where in every issue, it's like, oh, wow, America's been the bad guy in many ways with how we carry out our foreign policy and how we're an imperialistic power. So he is tremendous influence on me in many ways. So that would be my answer to that. I know it's not one person, but I feel like I can't just give one person. Here's another great question. What do you think of Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert? I love them. I think they're great. Now, I don't really watch them religiously. Every once in a while I'll watch them. But what I do is different from what they do. I don't think this person's asking because they're comparing what I do to what they do. But yeah, there's absolutely no comparison because what they do is harder. Understand that. What I do is I'll give you the news and the information, and then I just kind of pontificate, right? What they do is it's more of like a talk radio format. What they have to do is take the news and then put it through this, comedic lens, this comedic machine, and then out the other end has to come something that's smart and funny. So I think what they do is much harder. I'm sorry. Your favorite hip-hop, who are your favorite hip-hop and R&B artists? Guaranteed to get a lot of hate on this, especially because people mock the break music sometimes on the live show. But I'm embarrassed to admit that I'm a big Chris Brown fan. I almost feel morally wrong for liking him because of what he did to Rihanna. But goddamn, he's so talented and his music is great. When it comes to rappers, I would say Fabulous. And granted, it's been a while since he's, done something great, but always loved him. Also, I liked Lil Wayne before he was like Wheezy, essentially, before he started doing collaborations with everybody and their mother. I liked him back in the Cash Money days. I'm a big Cash Money fan. Manny Fresh, Birdman, like I'm Block is Hot days. Only the true fans know the Block is Hot, right? That's like the first Lil Wayne when he was really little. So that's the kind of rap that I like. I'm a big fan of Southern rap, and I don't know why. I just like Southern rap. I like the sound of it. And when it comes to R&B, got to go Justin Timberlake, even though that's like R&B/pop because he's white. And again, I'm old school. 90s R&B was the heyday of R&B for me. It was R&B was in its prime in the 90s. I think any true lover of R&B from my generation would admit that. And you got to go like Genuine, man. I think Genuine is classic. Genuine was great, just great. All right, now, switching gears in a really strong way here. What do you think of a guaranteed basic income? Yeah, a lot of liberals really like this idea. Believe it or not, I actually don't. What I like more than that is what's called the negative income tax. So you know how we have a progressive tax system? Every modern nation has a progressive tax system, or at least on paper they do. Sometimes there's some fuckery that ruins that on the back end. But so a progressive tax is, the less you make, the lower your tax. The more you make, the higher your tax rate goes. And then there's also marginal taxes on top of that for like the super rich. And marginal taxes, for those of you who don't know, it means that like your first $1 million, let's say, for example, is taxed at a lower rate. But then everything you make over $1 million is taxed at a higher rate. So, but a negative income tax basically makes it so that if you're poor or if you're middle class, not only will you pay less in taxes, it might be that you get a subsidy. You get a guaranteed subsidy because you're making less money. It's almost like a de facto unemployment system that never runs out, if you will. Like if you're in bad times, here's a check. It's a negative income tax because you made $14,000 this year, or whatever the case is. So that's what I prefer. I like that better than a guaranteed basic income because maybe it's still like the old readings I did of the Austrian economics people. And to be clear, today I disagree with them on many things. So, don't get all crazy just because I'm mentioning them here. But I don't know if, to me, that seems like it's almost too much fuckery with the money supply and too much fuckery with giving away too much, if you will. Like, I'd rather have a negative income tax because it's tied to what your current situation is, as opposed to a guaranteed basic income, which is like giving money to everybody. To me, that seems a little bit silly, and it goes a little bit too far, and it might fuck with the money supply a little too much. And here's final question, I think the most interesting and the one that really gets deep. What do you want out of your show and life in general? Deep, bro. No, that really is like a what's the meaning of life for you kind of question. And without getting way too corny here, it's my contention that while there is no objective meaning to life, and I think anybody that tells you that there is, they have no fucking clue, I think that there is incredibly powerful subjective meaning, which to me, in terms of how it feels, that's just as deep and just as profound and just as fulfilling as if there was an objective meaning to life. And for me personally, my meaning is to push as hard as I possibly can towards an ideal system that we have, a political system, an economic system, a cultural and sociological system. And I want to try to get as close to that ideal system on this earth as we possibly can. Now, I've said this before, I don't believe in a utopia. So I don't believe in a perfect society. But I believe we can get close. I believe human beings have the potential to get really close. And when we do that, life will be better for everybody. So I guess in a nutshell, you can say that my goal is to attempt to make life better for everybody and push as hard as I can while I'm here to do that.